Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
San Diego is supposed to get its first winter rainstorm this week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. 2 atmospheric rivers could drop from 1 to 1.5 inches of rain between Wednesday and Friday. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has the story.
The coming rainy season is unlikely to rise to last year's level. California was clobbered in the past year by at least a dozen strong atmospheric rivers, which brought a lot of rain and near record-breaking snowfalls. Atmospheric rivers bring dense tropical moisture from the Pacific Ocean to our coastline that fall as rain and snow. This week, we'll see 2 atmospheric rivers hit California and Baja California. Alex Tardy with the National Weather Service today said the strongest waves will see landfall north and south of San Diego.
Numbers in the southwest part of California still indicating this is more favored to be Santa Barbara. So LA northward is still indicating that. But we also have an atmospheric river coming up from the south. So numbers have gone up in northern Baja.
Tardy said San Diego County can expect 1 to 1.5 inches of rain this week. Some of it will fall on Wednesday, some on Friday and Friday night. The National Weather Service says San Diego County mountains will get between 1 and 3 inches of rain. Tardy says this will be great weather for dampening the fire risk.
But with all this moisture and all this rain expected, we should be in really good shape fire weather-wise. Not ending the season, but in good shape.
The rain on Wednesday will be quite warm. Things will cool off on Friday, but not enough to bring snow to the local mountains. Tardy said the snow level on Friday will drop to a bit below 8,000 feet. It'll be dry next week for the Thanksgiving holiday. Another storm will be brewing over the Pacific in the late part of November and early December, but Tardy says it may not reach the coastline.
There was some opportunity for another storm, but it looks like at the moment that one might stay offshore further and mainly go up into the Pacific Northwest.
This winter has been dubbed an El Nino when the surface of the ocean warms and the chances of rain can increase. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
As we work our way into the overnight, expect mainly clear skies around Borrego Springs down to 46. Not looking overly active from Oceanside, points south toward Chula Vista, though there will be some cloudiness. But coming up, we're going to talk about a slightly milder afternoon on Tuesday, followed by wet weather. Later on this week, we'll talk temperatures and much more in just a little bit. Stick around.
California's local governments are at least thinking about staffing up for climate change-related challenges. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson finds staffing could be a key to unlocking federal funding.
California's municipalities are expected to play a critical role in the state's decarbonization effort, but local governments are at various stages of readiness. A report from the nonpartisan think tank Next 10 says local municipalities will play a key role as federal funds flow to the state.
Really, so much of climate action happens at the local level, at a city, town, and county level. And we understood that there was going to be significant funds coming into California from the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure law that President Biden instituted.
About a third of the state's local governments responded to a survey seeking to gauge the extent of climate planning. Researchers found only about half of the respondents have or are working on climate action plans. The state's richest and largest governments are leading local efforts. 17 San Diego County municipalities have or are developing the climate blueprints.
Climate action plans are very expensive to prepare. And so I think, not every jurisdiction has the resources or perhaps the political will to do so.
Poway is the only local government without one. Researchers say staffing up for climate change is something that may help local governments tap into all the federal funding that will soon be available in California.
Jurisdictions that have full-time funded staff will have an easier time navigating a pretty complex funding landscape.
The federal government is preparing to invest several $billion in climate-friendly technologies and initiatives. Tapping the federal funding spigot could help local governments plan for and deal with climate change. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A cyber attack is still impacting hospital operations at Tri-City Medical Center. The Oceanside Hospital reported last Thursday they became aware of unauthorized activity. Since then, a third-party cybersecurity firm has been investigating and working to restore systems. The ER is open, but all elective procedures are postponed until systems can be fully restored. A hospital spokesperson says they've been in contact with nearby hospitals to ensure the health of patients. Governor Gavin Newsom says a fire that closed a major interstate near downtown Los Angeles appears to have been intentionally set. So far, no information on possible suspects has been released, but the governor said at a news conference today that the fire was set at a storage business operating below the 10 freeway. Commuters seem to have taken the advice from officials to plan alternate routes as congestion was lighter than normal this morning. Hazardous materials teams worked on removing burned material.
If you're not aware, and this is probably news to some of you, the shoring for the bridge is up. They did that all through the night. And so within the next day or two, we'll be able to figure out the timelines. If it's going to be a full demolition, how long that's going to take. If it's going to be a repair under the existing conditions, how long that's going to take.
Engineers will see if the charred columns and deck of the highway can support the normal traffic on 300,000 vehicles per day. Newsom says the initial examination indicates the structural integrity of the freeway is better than expected. The mess on the 10 freeway isn't the only potential obstacle facing Thanksgiving travelers. Coming up, how a potential government shutdown could cause delays at the airport. Congress is facing a Friday night deadline to come up with a plan to keep the government running. New House Speaker Mike Johnson unveiled his proposal over the weekend. Mike Valerio breaks down its chances of passing.
Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson's plan to temporarily fund the government is already facing opposition from members of his own party.
The one thing we know almost to a certainty is that the GOP side of the aisle contains a number of people who are extremists and who have shown absolutely no indication that they want to get things done.
The first part of the bill, in a two-tier plan, extends funding until January 19th for items including military construction, veterans affairs, transportation, housing, and the energy department. The second part extends funding until February 2nd for the rest of the government.
We need more time so we could pass those and then have until February to negotiate with the Senate to get this done.
Missing from the plan, additional aid for Israel or Ukraine, and the deep spending cuts hardline conservatives are looking for. With a slim majority in the House, Johnson will likely need Democratic support to get the bill passed.
Johnson is going to do what's right, buy time, and then come together with the Dems and work in a bipartisan fashion, which is what the American people want.
Some lawmakers are frustrated with the piecemeal approach.
It just means we're postponing the agony.
But with the clock ticking and several global crises ongoing, the pressure is on Congress to act.
I mean, there's no choice here. I mean, the world is on fire from where I sit. It is too, urgent. We can't sit back and do nothing.
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
After a loss at Colorado State, where the San Diego State football team's late comeback fell short, Coach Brady Hoke announced today that he is retiring. The news was a surprise, even with a disappointing season. KPBS reporter Alexander Wynn has reactions from students on campus.
Aztecs have got to have it. Armstead wants it. Armstead is in. Touchdown, San Diego State.
Despite a late surge in the game against Colorado State, San Diego State still came up short, marking the first time the Aztecs are not bowl eligible since 2009. They are now tied for last place in the Mountain West Conference. Coach Brady Hoke did not give any indication he is considering retirement in a post-game interview.
The guys played hard. We should have played maybe better earlier, but The guys played hard, and I'm proud of that.
The news also surprised players who found out early this morning during their workout session. It was a reversal of fortune for a coach who 2 years ago guided the Aztecs to a record-breaking 12 wins. This season, the team lost 7 of the past 8 games. On campus, some students think it's time for a culture change.
I don't think it's anything personal. I think it's just needing the team to succeed and try something new.
Noah Lyon says the football program has gotten predictable and other teams are capitalizing on that. But San Diego State is not a football school, so the news did not reverberate around campus. The students we talked to on campus don't seem to know about the retirement or were glad that there will be new blood for the football program. Like freshman Holden Sherbakov, who hopes it will lead to a winning program.
It's bad, man. I mean, yeah, we're losing to schools that haven't won in like 2 years, and it's embarrassing.
Hoke will finish the season with the last 2 games this week at San Jose State and at home against Fresno State next week. He still has 3 years left on his contract with a buyout worth nearly $5 million. San Diego State is expected to search for a head coach immediately in hopes of hiring one by December when recruiting period starts.
Touchdown, San Diego State.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
This is Transgender Awareness Week, a time to recognize the gender-diverse community. Confrontations over pronouns and politics have often marginalized people who are trying to live as their authentic selves. KPBS education reporter MG Perez shares some transgender stories happening right now at one school known as a safe space for inclusion.
The blow dryers and beauty are a constant here at this street corner in downtown San Diego, where Paul Mitchell, the school, has been educating future professional stylists for 20 years. That's almost as long as Bo O'Neill has been alive.
As someone who does use pronouns that are they, them, and I can kind of pass either way.
Bo also uses he, him pronouns as he transitions in what he calls a genderqueer identity. He's learning how to cut and color hair at the school, but graduation will have to wait until the spring. This week, Bo is having top surgery, removing female breasts from his chest.
Even though I haven't been comfortable with it and I don't like it, it's almost like sad to see it go away, if that makes sense. Because we've gone through just so much together, my chest and I.
So what do you see here with our choices in cutting?
Bo has a mentor and learning leader, as they call them here at the school. Dice Moreno is non-binary and uses all pronouns. She was once a student and is now sharing her experience at Paul Mitchell. With a master's degree in education and a lifetime of setbacks, successes, and strength, Dice is committed to helping her community find themselves.
There's nuance to LGBTQ experience, and something like hair is so personal that you really have to be gentle, mindful of the words that you use and the assumptions that you make about the person in your chair, because if you're not mindful, you might make assumptions that are incorrect that hurt. They hurt the person.
In Dice's story, hurt turned to healing. Dice has a wife, and together they are preparing to open a new salon in the heart of Hillcrest, a business that is not only about making money, but making progress in transgender awareness. They raised $600 for the Trans Youth Project in July, giving haircuts at the San Diego Pride She-Fest. And they take every opportunity to educate people who want to say the right thing when they meet a transgender person, especially when it comes to pronouns.
If you mess up, it's okay. Just say you're sorry and move on. Don't make them do the emotional labor of consoling you after you misgender them. Just move on. So these short hairs help to provide the volume that we're seeking, and it also takes out some of the bulk.
In the chair on this day is a friend and client of both Dice and Bo. Dean Miller is full of life. And they are serious about service to their transgender community and others who are marginalized because of how their brain works.
Neurospicy, so not allistic. So that means that you're either you have ADHD or you have autism.
Dean is a health coach and personal trainer for people of all gender identities who are neurospicy, a new pop culture term fondly referring to those who are neurodivergent. Dean uses their professional platform to educate too.
Even if you don't understand us, I think that awareness and putting it on our radar can really start that curiosity process. But it also gives us clarity on people who are not interested.
Dean is talking about the people in the current political climate legislating against transgender rights. But the Paul Mitchell School is a safe space for everyone, according to the education director, Katie Graves.
So they come here and they feel like they are home, they feel included, and then it gives them that confidence. In that short amount of time that they're here in school, it gives them that confidence. They build a foundation. In most cases, they build a family.
A family Bo O'Neill will depend on this week as he has his long-awaited top surgery, excited for the change and the future.
Not wearing binders, they're very constricting and tight, and I think I'd love to do hair without feeling a compression on my chest all the time. I'm just ready to like fix my posture and not be compressed.
It sounds like freedom.
Yeah, yeah.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
The week of awareness leads up to the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance next Monday, honoring those killed in acts of transphobia. Dog owners are not going to be able to surrender their pets to San Diego Humane Society for the time being. The Humane Society says it's temporarily limiting its intakes due to a highly contagious respiratory disease. Reclaiming fees will be waived for anyone picking up a lost dog, and relinquishments for all other species should be made by appointment. The changes will be in effect through December 1st. However, there are some exceptions for emergencies that threaten the health of a pet. If you plan to leave home Thanksgiving weekend, then brace yourself. AAA is predicting one of the busiest holiday periods on record. That's on top of complications like a possible government shutdown. Amy Kiley has more on what to expect.
A AAA forecast out today predicts this Thanksgiving will be the third busiest on record for travelers. It estimates over 55 million people will venture 50 or more miles from home. And travelers could face more headaches than just congestion. Los Angeles is scrambling to reopen this critical section of I-10 after a devastating fire over the weekend.
This is an emergency. This is not going to be resolved in 1 or 2 days.
A possible government shutdown this coming weekend would have a broader impact. The White House is warning airline passengers could face long wait times and delays.
November 2.
The U.S. already has a shortage of air traffic controllers. A shutdown could make that worse.
That would force the FAA to suspend hiring, close its training academy, delay the pipeline of new controllers, delay modernization.
TSA employees would have to work without paychecks.
From what I hear, we're looking to surpass some records here in Atlanta over this travel holiday season. So to be in a government shutdown during that time is not going to be good.
Workers at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport say they're especially concerned.
Atlanta is the busiest airport in the world. So, you know, a slowdown here slows down everything else, and we just do not want that happening.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
We have some big league changes coming up as we work our way down the road. In the short term, still looking at some sunshine into Tuesday. In fact, a slightly milder or warmer afternoon. But then after that, we're going to be talking about, again, a couple of systems coming in that will be depositing wet weather. Let's take you through the short term later on this evening and into tonight. And notice the moisture right now streaming off toward the north, impacting primarily central and northern parts of the state. And notice not a whole lot of cloudiness along the shoreline. You can see a little bit of that going on around Catalina Island, where there's also some choppy surf, some small craft advisories out. As we go into Tuesday, again, if you're traveling far enough north along Interstate 5, you'll bump into the wet weather. But again, not in our area just yet. And like I said, a slightly milder afternoon as we climb up into the mid-70s around Oceanside, also toward Chula Vista. 81 Borrego Springs, mid-50s toward Mount Laguna. We go into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, different story, and even into the weekend as we see an area of low pressure spinning about, and that's going to start to press some moisture and some showery conditions into our area. That's right, we could see some of those showers here on Wednesday, more so as we work our way toward late in the week, say Friday, also into Saturday, and that'll put a lid on the warmth. Those high temperatures will start to drop. Over the interior valleys, a couple of showers, a little bit of afternoon rain on Wednesday. I think a larger round coming in potentially as we go into Friday night, and also Saturday, longer in duration. And then as we look into the mountainous terrain, and we're going to hold off on the wet weather here until Thursday. We work our way into Saturday. Look at that. We're going to be dropping down to the 40s with some wet weather, and we can even see some precipitation coming into the deserts as we head our way into the upcoming weekend. Temperatures will be dropping down just a bit into the mid and the upper 70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
There are turkey trots and reindeer runs, but if you're planning to participate in a fun run this holiday season, health experts say you need to prepare now to avoid injury later. Mandy Gaither explains what you need to do to train.
'Tis the season for themed races, but you could trot your way toward an injury if you don't train properly.
Just going literally from the couch to the 5K is not a really good idea.
Orthopedic surgeon Timothy Miller with the Ohio State's Wexner Medical Center says not preparing your body can lead to injuries like muscle strains, tendinitis, IT band syndrome, even stress fractures from overuse.
You put a lot of additional stresses on your body when you do that. And not just on the musculoskeletal system where we think about it mostly, but also on the cardiovascular system as well.
Miller says if you're just starting to run, see a doctor to make sure you're healthy enough to take on long distances. If everything checks out health-wise, he says to start slow, training at least a month out for a 5K, building up mileage gradually. He also suggests varying the terrain.
So running on hard surfaces, for example, all the time, like hard sidewalks, hard pavement, can put a lot of additional stress on your body from what we call ground reaction forces, leading to injuries.
Have proper footwear that's supportive and fits well. Miller says to go up a half or full size in your running shoe to accommodate foot swelling. And he recommends breaking in new shoes before a race.
That means training them in them for at least a week or two to make sure you're comfortable with what their weight they're going to feel on your feet.
Miller advises fueling your body, and even when it's colder outside, hydration is still critical. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Comic-Con Museum recently opened a trio of new exhibits, and one of them looks to the godfather of coloring, Steve Oliff, and his 45-year career coloring comics. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando explains how the exhibit traces the evolution of comic book color.
In simple terms, a comic book colorist takes black and white line art and adds color. But it's easy for readers to take a colorist's work for granted and not fully appreciate how it impacts every page.
I call color the silent soundtrack because you can tell the story underneath and people don't even think about it. It's just like they're looking at the art, they're reading the story, but the color actually enhances the storytelling.
Since the mid-1970s, Steve Oliff has enhanced tens of thousands of pages of comics, from The Incredible Hulk to Akira. He's been around long enough to see the tools of his trade change. Oliff wanted to educate people on the evolution of comic book coloring with an exhibit at the Comic-Con Museum called Big Dots to the Digital Universe.
Comic books came out of the newspaper tradition. It was cheap paper. They wanted a cheap product, so they had a very limited palette.
A palette that started with just 4 colors and printed using small dots. The colors were cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, commonly referred to as CMYK.
And CMYK are the colors of the printing that every magazine, everything that's printed in color generally is printed using those 4 colors. Depending upon the percentages of each of those colors, they would usually get 64 colors and they had to try to make it work. That's not very much to work with.
But that's what Oliff had to work with when he started coloring comics nearly 50 years ago.
These are old 3M color keys, the key to color separation. They would break it down into 4 different layers so you could see each of the printing plates. The yellow, the magenta, and then when the blue, and as you can see, the colors just keep getting richer and thicker, and then finally the black or the K tone to tie it all together.
But then came Akira.
Well, I got the job of coloring Akira, which is a absolutely world-famous manga. Akira was the first actual comic book that was colored for production using a computer. It would start with the line artwork that came from Japan. Then we would take a reduced copy, and then we'd do our color guide. So then it would go to my computer crew, and they would do their computer color separation. As you can see, from our first proof to the actual chromalin proof of what was going to be printed, we made some changes. And that was one thing that was great about computers. If you wanted to change something, you could. Whereas if you did it by hand, it's very difficult. The technology has reached a level where the only thing that will hold anybody back from coloring well is their talent and their vision.
Olaf's career provides the perfect canvas for appreciating the art of the colorist and how the process of creating comics has changed over the decades. The exhibit will run through next August at the Comic-Con Museum in Balboa Park. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, the Marvels crashed at the box office. What does this mean for the franchise? And KPBS Midday Edition is discussing the relationship of indigenous nations to the environment and what we need to do now to fight the effects of climate change. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.